The air was thick with the warmth of summer, the scent of pine and fresh lake water filling my lungs as my dad and I made our way down the worn dirt path. The sun hung low in the sky, casting golden light through the trees, making everything around us glow. I was 10 years old, my small fishing rod slung over my shoulder, my father walking beside me, his sturdy tackle box in hand. The dock at the end of the trail stretched out over the lake, its weathered wood creaking under our footsteps as we stepped onto it. We had been here many times before, but something about this evening felt different. Maybe it was the way the water was so perfectly still, mirroring the sky above. Or maybe it was the quiet understanding between us that this was our moment, just me and my dad. He handed me a baited hook, and I carefully cast my line out into the water, just as he had taught me. The lure disappeared beneath the surface, vanishing into the deep, unseen world below. For a while, we sat in comfortable silence, the only sounds being the occasional chirp of crickets and the soft lapping of water against the dock. My dad had always been a man of few words, but he didn't need them. His presence alone was enough to make me feel safe, like nothing in the world could touch me as long as he was there. He reached into the small cooler beside him and handed me a soda, the can cold and damp against my fingers. I popped it open and took a sip, savoring the fizzy sweetness as he did the same. It was such a simple thing, sharing a drink while waiting for a bite, but at that moment, it felt like the most important thing in the world. Then, just when I was beginning to think we might go home empty-handed, I felt the slightest tug on my line. My heart jumped as I tightened my grip, waiting to see if it was real or just my imagination. Another sharp tug. My breath caught in my throat as I turned to my dad, eyes wide with excitement. He gave me a knowing smile and nodded. "Go on, kiddo. You got this." I pulled back hard, feeling the resistance of something fighting against me. My hands trembled as I reeled in, my dad coaching me through it, his voice steady and sure. "Keep the tension. That's it. Don't rush it." My arms burned, my pulse raced, but I didn't let go. The fish broke the surface, a flash of silver flipping and twisting in the fading light. My dad reached over, helping me bring it onto the dock, and I stared at it in awe. It wasn't the biggest fish, but it was mine, my catch, my victory. I looked up at him, expecting him to take over, to handle the hard part. Instead, he just sat back, watching me with quiet pride. "You know what to do," he said. I hesitated, then carefully reached down, just as he had shown me in the past. My fingers fumbled with the hook, but I managed to free the fish, holding it gently for a moment, before lowering it back into the water. I watched as it flicked its tail and disappeared into the depths, leaving only ripples behind. As we packed up our things, the sky now turning a dusky purple, my dad ruffled my hair, his voice soft but certain. "One day, you'll bring your own kid here." I smiled, not really thinking much about it at the time. After all, I was just a kid myself. But that moment, that feeling of being there with him, of learning and growing under his quiet guidance, stayed with me long after that summer night. Years later, I found myself standing on that very same dock, a small hand gripping mine tightly. My own child, eyes full of wonder, held a fishing rod that seemed far too big for them, just like I once had. As they cast their line into the water, looking up at me for reassurance, I smiled and said the words that had been etched into my memory for so long. "Go on, kiddo. You got this."